Hey everyone, welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast. I'm Tim Chelsvik, and across the table from me,
Matt Drury.
Matt Drury. Check it out. Be nice to yourself.
I'll never forget the one piece of feedback we got early on the podcast was, I love the Drurys, but I don't like Matt.
Oh, no.
Thanks.
Some guy said he didn't like me. He wanted Kenyon back because
I get it.
I'm not going to disagree with him, but because I mentioned in the podcast with Dan Schmidt from Deer and Deer Hunting that I didn't think we use geometry in our everyday lives a whole lot.
Well, I mean, you probably shouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit. We try to stay away from really controversial issues like geometry.
Yeah. Well, we need to introduce our guest here today as well. So it's Trevor Walker. He's our production manager here at Drury Outdoors,
and he loves geometry.
Yeah, he loves geometry. He sat in with us on the last podcast where we kind of talked about our farms and what's going on and the seasonal work we're doing. But today is going to be all about cameras, production,
filming your hunts.
Yeah, we get this question all the time. But before we get into it, give us a little bit of your background, production background, and kind of why you can speak to this stuff.
Yeah, so my start in the outdoor industry, I started filming waterfowl. And that's a whole different monster from filming.
Not easy.
No, from whitetail hunts. When you got water, dealing with that aspect, water and electronics don't mix well. And it's far more dirty and dusty. You're just hanging out in fields all day. Then moved from that into whitetail. So I've been here for roughly 2 years.
Yep.
So I've spent a lot of hours behind the camera out in the woods. So
yeah. And what's your degree in?
My degree is in mass communications with the emphasis in TV. So all kinds of top end training on ins and outs of cameras, technical assets, and that stuff.
So we got the right guy here.
Totally.
Hopefully.
So we got a question like we normally do, and especially this time of year, it's becoming top of mind. We got a question from one of our fans named Gary, who wanted to know about filming hunts.
Absolutely. So the question of the day today is brought to you by the Lacrosse Alpha Burley Pro. Tread lightly, hunt confidently.
So filming your hunt is something that more and more folks are getting interested in, whether it's they just want to share their hunt with their family and friends, or maybe they're doing so. Maybe they have an outdoor media company that they're running videos. And so we thought it'd be a great time to treat the subject and kind of break it down into low level, mid level, and high level, and kind of based on what you want to spend and what you want to do with it. And that's why Trevor is such a great guest to have today, because he's seen countless hours of footage.
Yeah, it's not only seen, but been behind the camera producing countless hours of footage.
Equipment. So we'll talk about equipment. We'll talk about kind of the story and just different aspects of filming your hunt. So Trevor, based on what you see kind of out there as you cruise YouTube, what are some of the major things that people are missing when they film their hunts? Then we can get into the different levels.
I think the biggest thing a lot of people struggle with is good audio. Audio can make or break your hunt. If it's windy, and wind's tough to deal with. We struggled with wind on Matt's elk hunt last year because it's hard to get good audio when it's super windy. But just dealing with, a lot of people, they'll buy a camera and strictly rely on the internal mic, and most of those aren't a very good microphone. And you can get a cheap, like $65, $70 shotgun mic to throw on most cameras that will improve that audio vastly. Okay. Second biggest thing is, and this all depends on how far people want to go with it, is storytelling. If you just want to film your kill shot, cool, do that. But if you're actually trying to tell a story, we know all too well there's so many parts that go into it that it's like basically you always need a camera with you filming whatever you're doing, preparing for the season. So.
And you could go overboard on it too. I mean, real quickly,
Yeah.
especially like, we have 50 people across the country filming for us. Like there can be too much filmed. You got to know, you got to kind of have a internal clock as to know how long your shot should be, what's important and what's not, and kind of get in, get out. And if you got something to say, be upbeat and be positive and spit it out fairly quickly and intelligent, and those things help as far as if you're planning on even editing it on your own in iMovie.
For sure. Yeah, and it helps to, if you have a target deer or a couple target deer, to somewhat storyboard going into the season. Okay, like I want to do something on prepping this food plot. Like we think we can kill this deer on this food plot. I really want to focus on getting this ready, hanging the stand or setting the blind up that we're going to use there. That way it really ties into if I kill this deer, you have the complete story of it.
The supporting footage to me seems like the most difficult because it's not a whole lot of fun. And typically it's another layer of difficulty when you're already doing something like hanging stands. It's hot. You know, you want to get in and get done.
We run into that. I mean, a lot of times it's like, God damn, we got to film this. Like we're just trying to, we get to the farm, we have all these great plans to produce it. And then we get there and both of us are working the whole time and we don't get there often enough. So you got a lot of stuff you got to do while you're there. That's what makes it difficult, but there are cameras that you can easily use to help you out in those instances.
Yeah, so we have Garmin Verbs, similar to a GoPro. They're great to, you know, if you're hanging a stand, if you get a gorilla pod or something, you can put it in your back pocket, you know, up the tree, throw it on a limb, or hang it on something, you know, just to get a few shots of you strapping a stand in or whatever. It helps to at least get something. You know, it doesn't always have to be the highest end production for that type of stuff. So.
And realistically too, Tacticam, they have a new camera out, a 5.0, the Tacticam 5.0. They got a wide angle version that kind of mimics what a GoPro and a Verb does.
Right.
And that too, you know, they're a hunting based company, so you're kind of supporting one of our own in that regard. But they also make a very good camera. The new stuff's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. That's another part of getting into filming hunts. Like it depends on the quality of production you want to do. Yeah. Like if you're just wanting to film your kill shot, like if that's all you want to do, Tacticams are great for that.
Yeah.
So and it doesn't add anything onto your equipment. They're very well integrated into your bow or your gun, and it just doesn't add anything.
Yeah,
to it.
Unlike a Verb, you know, so even GoPro before that, you know, we always like to get that angle back. You know, we're trying to get as many angles as we can, so get the angle back of the hunter and the camera guy and what's happening in the stand or the blind. And we always would have to jerry rig something up on our bow or on our gun to make it work. Yeah. Well, the Tacticam is pretty cool because it just literally, the bow version just screws in as your stabilizer.
Yeah, that's slick.
It's slick and it's easy to turn on, especially with this new remote. And then, you know, they got a gun mount for the rifle barrel or whatever. I mean, they've kind of thought it through pretty well.
Yeah, it's a neat product.
Yeah. So, so that covers you on the very front end basic level.
Right. And those kind of supporting shots like that, it seems to me, and I'm not the expert around video production, but it seems to me like you never regret having that footage.
Not at all. No. It can always, like, we go on the fact of, like, you can never, like, if you have that, you might not use it, and that's fine, but it's nice to have it when you're like, man, I really could use this shot, and you're like, you can pull it from somebody else. It might tie into your hunt perfectly.
Yeah,
sure. You can always not use it.
You know, we used to preach cutaways big time with our subcontractors, and anymore, it's definitely still part of it. Like I'm talking about on the big shoulder camera cutaways after the hunt, and you know, everybody's seen the edits where it's like, well, how'd they do that? Okay, it was shot after the hunt. Yep. Well, the beauty of all this action camera stuff is you get the real life reactions and you cannot none of us are actors. You can't duplicate it. And the editors, it allows them to make you feel like you're in the moment the whole time. So it's a definite added bonus.
It's an infinite cutaway, essentially. Yeah. And it's nice it really ties into the whole scene of the hunt. You know, you get to see the hunter and the camera guy, or if you're by yourself, just the hunter, you know, you really get to see what they're doing throughout that scene to prepare to take that shot. So
that's the part I always love. Like, what are their eyes doing? What kind of focus, intensity? You know, what something mess up? What happened? Did something drop something or whatever? You know, it's cool to see. And we usually have two angles running in the blind or in the tree with us, catching all that action. Yeah. So, you know, obviously the luxury is we have more cameras to work with, but if you can, I mean, it's just cool to see those angles.
And it's entertaining, and there's also just a sheer factor of it's helped. Like, so some of the hunts that I've had a Verb pointed back at me while I'm at full draw, and and it's because my mind is not in my it's not in my head. I'm kind of on autopilot
Right.
at that point, and so like, am I bringing my head down to the string, or am I bringing the bow up to myself? Because I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So it's helpful for me to diagnose any shooting issues I might
I
have.
just blacked out. What happened?
Right. That's probably the best way of explaining that pre-shot mentality.
Yeah. Laser focus, man.
Totally.
And that's another great thing about filming your hunts, even if you're just doing it for fun, is it gives you the ability to go back and replay your shot.
Yeah.
If you didn't, if you're not sure if you made a good hit or a bad hit.
That's a good point.
It's great to be able to go back and say, okay, well, it wasn't positive, but from this, it looks like I hit long liver. That's a deer you want to back out on and give it some time to where if you didn't have that footage, you might stumble on that deer and bump it.
And even having that second angle, if you have the luxury of doing so, like Mark had a deer, I think last year we had on 13 last year, where he hit it really poorly, which isn't like Mark. I mean, he's usually a hell of a shot. And he hit it real poorly, and we went back and looked at the footage, and he said, man, I just looked at that point of view action, and I had a death grip on my bow, and I think I just torqued it, and just heat of the moment stuff. Well, that helps you realize, okay, how did I mess up so bad? If that kind of stuff did happen,
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it could be the difference between a buck and no buck, because like, we need to give that deer way more time.
Yeah,
that's not the hit I thought. So point of view cameras are a great kind of entry level,
for sure.
gets them interesting. Yeah, the audio on those is probably not something you're going to want to use if you can help it.
No. And the Tacticam, going back to that, is great. Their zoom version, it has an 8x zoom on it. So it's nice for filming your own hunts because it gets you a little bit closer than, say, a Verb or a GoPro.
Yeah, because those wide-angle Verb and GoPros, you just don't see anything. Yeah. Like if it's at 20 yards, it feels like it's 60 yards on camera. Yeah. And so the key factor there, though, if, say, you have it on your bow, mounted as your stabilizer on your bow, and they've gotten way better in that 5.0. Their image stabilization's way better.
Much.
But any bit of shaking you're doing, or obviously that kind of repercussion of the shot or whatever, you got to really try to be steady and stay on the deer with your bow, like not drop your arm or whatever, because if the whole point of it is to get the kill and then to see what happens right after it, you got to have that in your mind, like your bow is your camera, so you better keep filming, and try to stay steady,
which is a great reminder for follow through. You should be keeping your bow on target anyways.
And it's anybody thinks it's easy to go out and film their own hunt.
It's not.
They will be in for a rude awakening, because you think just killing a deer or taking a deer in itself is a process. But to have that whole thing of filming it on top of it, at some points it's chaotic.
We suck at that part.
We're great at filming, not so great at killing deer. So
on film.
Well, last year, so my buddy Josiah is my camera guy. All my kills, including my turkey kills, were without him. I was self-filming.
That's tough. Well, and every kill, we've been filming together a couple years, and only the elk is the only thing he's actually filmed me kill. Like, we're wasting a lot of time at the least not seeing anything. And every time that I have a trip to Dad's or a trip to Illinois, Trevor's hunting as well, so he puts in his vacation schedule, and just so happens it's lined up where he couldn't come with me, and that's when I kill. Always
it
every
never
time
lines up.
It doesn't. This year we're changing it, buddy.
That's right. We're gonna get one on film this year.
We got to.
So we've hit kind of the base level. Let's take if someone has a little more money, they want to invest a little bit more, what would be kind of a mid-level rig?
So going into mid-levels, if you're gonna be filming yourself, a camera arm is a must, especially if you're in a tree stand, or if you hunt basically out of ground blinds or box blinds, then you're looking at a tripod. But if you're a tree stand hunter, which probably I would say the majority of hunters in the country are, a camera arm is the way to go. And there's Muddy makes a really good one, and then another company, Fourth Arrow, I think it is. They make probably the top two out there. It's going to help you. I mean, it's basically going to make your hunt. Otherwise, there's no way you can, especially bow hunting, try to hold the camera and shoot.
If you're going above that Tacticam or Verb GoPro, next level, you might have that on your bow and want to film with a nice camera.
Exactly.
And we have guys do it every year on the team, and there's plenty of guys out there that do it, but boy, it's tough. And
it is.
If you're going to use a camera arm, you better get in early. It's going to take you some time to set up.
Yeah,
like we never use camera arms. Like Mark and Terry back in I remember early 90s, Dad's got a construction company. He had his welder, actually, they were manufacturing camera arms, aluminum camera arms back in the day, and they figured out the rig and how to make it smooth and how to rotate. And ultimately, A, it was heavy as all get out, and B, it almost always cost them a kill because the deer would get in on top of them too tight.
Yeah.
And the camera guys, I was like, no, he's turned around or whatever. So a long time ago, they switched to no camera arms. And not everybody on our team does it that way. There's plenty of guys that use camera arms. Right. But Mark, Terry, us, Taylor, we never ever use camera arms, ever. Now, the difference is two things. One, we're not self-filming, obviously. And the second thing is, usually our camera guys are pretty well schooled as to what to do with the camera, and we feel confident in their ability not to be shaken and not to, so we know that our camera guys are good, and we don't have to really worry about them not being steady on a tripod or on a on a arm.
So to kind of not really backtrack, but funny story. First deer that I ever filmed.
It better be funny, because if you say it's funny and it's not.
First deer that I ever filmed Matt shoot at.
So maybe funny for some of us.
I think the story sucks.
Cringe-inducing for others.
But we had this deer called Uni on the lease. This was in 2015, and we had 2 or 3 encounters with this deer in the same spot. Yeah. And finally, we decided we were going to set almost all day one day. It was beginning of November, right before the Missouri gun season. And it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. We haven't seen a deer in like 2 hours, and we had a doe come slipping up past us. And I heard a deer grunting behind her. And I told Matt, I was like, hey, there's a buck coming. And like, sure enough, Uni pops out, coming right at us.
In a spot where he burned us like days before, like he caught us red-handed, so he knew something's in the tree already.
Yeah. So he's coming up through there, and like he'd stop every 10 yards and like look, and then he'd look back at the doe, and ended up he came up, gave Matt a shot, and it was a tough shot. It was under a big dead tree that had fallen.
The biggest issue was I didn't have time to range him because he kept staring us down, so I didn't have time to grab my rangefinder, and I just suck at judging yardage. I can't. I just suck at it. Yeah. And so I didn't range him. I just judged it, and I missed it by about 10 yards.
just shot under him. But the funny side of this, Matt was talking about being steady. This was like the first deer, big buck that I had filmed. And I'm trying to film like Matt's reaction to him talking, and like the whole time the camera's like this. And like we literally had to sit there for like 10 minutes till I could calm down enough to like get a steady shot.
I'm not shaking. I'm fuming. And I'm like, why are you shaking?
You're upset. He's terrified.
Yeah. It was fun. It was good.
But
real fun.
So going into like the mid-level cameras, like you were talking about, Tim, there's a couple.
Thanks for bringing it back around.
Yeah,
we're gonna show that. We got to put it in the footage now. It was just
But the mid-level cameras, there's really a lot of options on that end. 2 of probably the most popular that we see here, the Canon XA30, which actually has been they're not making it anymore. They're making one called the XA11, but it's basically the same thing. It's a smaller camera. It's not very big. It's easy to pack around, especially for somebody that's self-filming. It'd be a perfect camera.
And these we call them palm cameras. They're legit. I mean, like the way they make them, their chip or whatever that's inside them, like they almost like auto color correct it. Like it's not great for us and our editors. We don't really like it because we like to have the control. You want kind of not a washed out, but a flat look, and then we color correct it. Okay. But for your regular consumer that's doesn't have the ability to color correct and edit and all that, like it's beautiful.
Looks better coming out of the camera.
Like Mark and Terry always say, like, man, my XA30, the camera quality looks better than our big cameras. Well, it does, but it's not technically it's not as good.
Right.
But they've kind of auto tweaked the settings so it looks fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a really good camera for your average guy.
For sure. Yeah. And that's kind of on the end of what a lot of people call prosumer cameras. They're consumer based, but they've got a few pro qualities to them that are nice.
Yeah, and about how much is that?
I think the XA11 is around $1,200. So
it's super affordable in the scheme of things.
Very affordable.
And a lot of times you can find that stuff on like eBay where it's used and not really nothing wrong with it.
And Amazon has great deals on them too. A lot of times you can find like a package deal that's a case, a mic, batteries, cards, everything for just a little bit more than what the camera costs.
And so everybody knows, we buy a lot of our stuff through B&H Photo Video. So you can go online and I think it's
BH Photo Video. I think it's bhphoto.com.
Yeah. So. And they're out of New York. We bought our stuff there for a decade.
Yeah.
You know, so they're quality
for
company.
sure. They're definitely the industry standard for video equipment. So
and that Canon has the ability to mount an external mic onto.
Yes.
It does. Yeah, it has 2 XLR mic plugs on the side. So
and this is all tapeless stuff. So that's the other main thing. You know, 5 years ago there was still quite a bit of tape, you know, mini DVs type stuff out there, but now it's all tapeless. A lot of the cameras have their own codecs, and that's probably getting too technical, but you know, like software that you need to if you wanted to edit or look at their file structure. But is Canon, which ones are .mov files, or there's
Canon doesn't shoot an MOV. Panasonic will shoot an MOV.
Panasonic,
and MOVs are a little beefier file structure, so you have to have something a little faster on the computer end to really work with them.
Like work well with Macs.
Correct. Yeah.
Apple products.
Yep. So MP4s and AVC HD. AVC HD is what Sony shoots.
Yeah.
And I believe the Canons will shoot AVC HD. It's a little tougher to work with as well, but overall MP4s for like a consumer, just some guy wanting to do it on his own, they're the easiest.
And the reason why that's important is because when you want to go back and watch your footage, like outside of the camera, if you want to put it on your computer and watch it on your phone or watch it somewhere else, like to have the right file structure is key, you know, because some of those you can't watch it. Like our guys in the field get frustrated because if it's not on their camera, like these, is it the Sonys or the Sonys, the NX5s we used to film a lot with, like if they didn't watch it while it was still on the camera, once they took the footage and put it on the hard drives, they never could access it again unless you knew what you were doing and had an editing program and brought it in and converted it and all that stuff.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is shoot a big buck and take it home to your family and like, oh, watch this, and then you can't show it.
Yeah, I mean, you can show it on the camera, but you never show it again.
Right. Yeah. So there's one other camera in the Panasonic line. That is the AC30. It's a little bigger camera than the XA11 is, the Canon, but it has a built-in LED light on the front, which most of us know for whitetail hunting can be crucial because out in the evening, most of the time your recovery, if you do kill one, is at night. Yeah. So that helps out a lot.
It's kind of your tracking light too, besides your camera.
Yeah.
You know.
And it has a little bit better image stabilization, and then it also has the function of you can shoot 120 frames per second as well.
And that image stabilizer is key because, you know, especially as a guy or girls just starting out and filming on your own, you're going to be shaky. I guarantee you, you're not going to be rock solid and kind of understand the ways you need to hold it out of the gate. You'll learn those things, but a good image stabilizer can kind of save
help.
your butt.
Yeah.
So the way that I understand image stabilization is that the camera will take maybe a larger, so the frame that it's shooting is large, but then the visible portion is smaller, and it moves around to compensate for the camera movement.
Somewhat like that. I know like the Panasonic GH5s, they're a mirrorless DSLR style camera. The way that image stabilization works in those, if you take the camera and like kind of rattle it when it's not working, you can hear the sensor moving in there, and that it's essentially somewhat of a floating sensor.
Okay.
To where
it's got bungee cords, you know?
Yeah,
it's
almost.
And
like if your camera is moving, like your sensor is staying in one spot. So that's basically how a lot of the image stabilization works. So and some of it's digital, so it just depends on what your camera has.
Yeah.
So that's the mid-level. What is the? I'm gonna really do something with this.
So high level it's kind of sky's the limit. You know, whatever you want to spend.
Yeah.
There's a camera out there for you.
And we don't actually get too nuts. Like high level is still kind of prosumer, to be honest with you. Like you can get a really nice camera for still pretty affordable. Yeah. I mean, the technology is unbelievable.
It is. You know, the cameras that we're using now are the Panasonic HC-X1s. And I just looked yesterday on B&H, and they've dropped below $3,000 for a brand new one. And that they shoot 4K and 1080. So, you know, we've been telling a lot of our guys on the team, hey, get this camera because ultimately there's going to be a time when 4K is going to be the norm. Yeah. And so this camera will help. It kind of locks you in to where, you know, if you bought a 1080 camera and then 2 or 3 years from now, you know, okay, we're going to 4K. Well, I don't have a 4K camera. So you can do both. It locks you in, and it's a great camera. It's got an awesome sensor on it. I haven't used the camera as far as low light capabilities that's anywhere near the HCX1.
And so the HCX1's what we film most of our whitetail stuff with. But then the GH5, which is another really high end, the DSLR cameras.
Yeah, so
we filmed the elk hunt with.
The GH5, it really depends on how comfortable you are with cameras. The GH5 is a little more technical. So like the HCX1, the Panasonic, the big one that we use for most of our whitetail stuff, you can set it up as just a run and gun camera and turn it on, punch record, go.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to use.
The GH5, on the other hand, it requires a little more technical knowledge of cameras and how cameras work. So you're constantly messing with your ISO, your f-stop, your aperture. You know, there's all kinds of settings that you can constantly mess with depending on time of day, the light that you're dealing with, conditions. You know, it's ever changing.
So if we had to pull a guy off the street to help us film a hunt, which happens occasionally, a friend of a friend, when we just are short, handed, that big camera,
For sure.
What was
the Panasonic HCX1?
Yeah, that's the one we give them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
hey, just point and click, just make sure you're recording.
Yeah.
We'll keep it in autofocus,
Yeah, and so that's the biggest thing with the GH5 is, it has fantastic focus peaking. And if you don't know what focus peaking is, it is a color scheme on your viewfinder that anything that's in focus will show up as a color. So you can change it between, I think, blue and white and green in there. And so anything that turns blue is in focus. So that really helps a lot, especially because, on the elk hunt in the midday, if it's sunny, it's hard to really tell if you're in focus or not.
So if you're in focus on the elk, it'll shade the elk blue?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and we went and rented a couple high-end lenses for that trip, long lens type stuff, and the body is one thing, but the glass you use is a whole different.
Yeah, and that's where it really comes into low light. If you want to do better low light stuff, you got to have a piece of glass that has the lowest possible f-stop capabilities. You want something that's a 2.0 if you can. Now you get down into that range of glass, those are pretty expensive lenses, if not very expensive lenses.
There's some rental companies out there that are, was it Lens Pro to go, or
there's borrowlenses.com and that's really reasonable.
It's super affordable.
Yeah, if you want to, like for Matt's elk, that's what we did. His elk hunt, we had rented a lens for 10 days and didn't cost us hardly anything. Where we're shooting on a $3,500 lens.
That we wouldn't need, for whitetail stuff, and you just don't need it. So we didn't need to buy it, but you could rent it for a couple $100 or whatever for 10 days. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And with that, with the GH5 comes other accessories as well. Like out there, we got a monopod because
a nice one.
Yeah, a very nice one that's got it has legs on the bottom for stabilization.
Like a claw. Almost.
Yeah, it's like a claw. So honestly, there was times when we were calling, the way we hunted out there, a lot of times we would start calling to a bull. So, we didn't have to do a lot of stalking. Ultimately, the one that Matt harvested was a stalk. So, but I could set that monopod down and lock the bottom in, and I could just let go of it.
On very unsteady, uneven ground. It was amazing, really, what that thing could do. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it made the hunt, really, as far as on the filming side. It helped a ton. So that's your biggest asset if you're out west, because even if you have the HCX1, bring something to where you're not having to pack a camera around all day, because your arm's going to eventually get tired. Have something that takes, and they're not that heavy, but have something that takes a little bit of the weight off and the stress of packing it around.
So something I've wondered about, because I see more and more people using DSLRs to film video with. If you can film great video and take great pictures, why would a person get a
Because you got to be a stud, man. You got to know what you're doing. I've seen more crappy DSLR footage come in our studio from our team. No offense to anybody, but your average guy just isn't that adept at it.
Yeah.
And so you got to know how a camera works, first of all, and f-stops and ISO, and you got to understand all that stuff to get the most out of it. Now, could you figure it out by just playing around? Absolutely. We've had camera guys that have done it and had a good eye, so they became great camera guys,
Right.
and they had no knowledge about how a camera worked.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of those guys, but your average guy it's not gonna be easy to pick that camera up and succeed. You're gonna have a lot of shaky, crappy, overexposed footage.
Yeah, and the other issue with DSLRs is audio. Not until recently there wasn't a whole lot of great audio options for them. You have the Rode video mic, and then we have I think ours is a Shure video mic.
Yeah.
And those are nowadays pretty good as far as like a shotgun mic.
Okay.
The audio is great. The GH5 does have a hot shoe mount XLR piece that you can buy. It's like I think it's an additional $500. But that allows you to plug XLR mics into it. So if you want to run a wireless mic or a lav or something like that, you have the ability to do that.
Can you explain what makes a mic a shotgun mic, kind of the pattern that it uses?
Shotgun mics, the reason they call them shotgun mics is because the way that they pick up audio is straightforward. So you think of it as shooting a shotgun. Whatever that mic is pointed at is where it's going to be picking up. It's not going to pick things up from left, right, behind you very well. So it's straightforward is where it's picking up the best audio.
And a little bit of a pro tip here: if it's a windy day and you're shooting into the wind, your audio is going to just sound like it's going to sound horrible.
Yep.
It's an easy fix. There's a couple things you can do. You can get to where the wind's being blocked, whether it's terrain, get down a little bit lower, get behind a structure, or the one thing that we do a lot is we just turn our back to it and block it with so the camera guy's back is to where the wind's coming from. So it's coming into the hunter or the speaker's face. So that blocks that really you're still going to pick it up a little bit, but not nearly as bad.
Yeah, it'll at least be salvageable.
And that goes for your phone. Say you're just filming with your phone's camera.
Correct.
That's the easiest way to get better audio is make sure the camera guy's back is to the wind.
And the biggest thing, and sometimes I slack on this too, is wear headphones. That's the easiest thing to do is throw a pair of headphones in your bag, throw them in camera, so you're
monitoring the audio.
Yeah, and as small as they make headphones nowadays, you could get your iPhone headphones or whatever and earbuds, and it's not very intrusive.
No.
So which kind of brings up the whole notion of filming on your phone. Yeah. Which a lot of folks are doing.
Yeah, I've seen they've got like lens kits for your iPhone now. So
So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's something to consider, especially if you are if you want to keep your cost of investment low.
I think you got to watch out for shaky footage there. You can't zoom as far. They got make lens kits and zoom kits for your glass or whatever for your camera. So you can invest in that, and it's pretty affordable in the scheme of things. But boy, I would sure practice ahead of your hunt. And they make a lot of mounts now for your phone to go on your weapon.
Gun, bow,
so like you can do a lot with a phone nowadays.
The thing with phones too, though, is you got to understand anytime you zoom in, you're losing quality.
Big time.
Like the best quality is zoomed out all the way on your phone. So that's another thing that's with actual cameras, you don't lose that.
Plus low light's horrible, which is when, the first 15 minutes, last 15 minutes is when the deer are going to move.
Right.
Always.
So your low light's going to suck. I mean, it's a great entry level, but I'd say if you want to get a little more serious, at the very least, go up to that action camera that we were talking about at the first, the first part of the podcast.
So when I first started filming or at least thinking about filming my hunts, I did what I think most people do, and that they focus on the gear and forget about the story. Like how do I make this compelling? How do I make this in a way that people would even care to watch it?
Right.
It's pretty simple. Beginning, a middle, and an end. Yep. You're telling a story just like a book. You got to tell them. You got to set it up. You got to, so that's going to the stand. That's the prep work of what to hang the stands or the blinds or whatever the case. That's the beginning. Set it up. The middle is the hunt. Yep. Whether you miss one, you kill one, you have an encounter, that's the middle. And then the end is some conclusionary, you found the deer, or shoot, we missed him, or we're tracking, or, tonight we didn't see anything, I'm back in the truck, or in the stand, you're closing out with an interview or whatever. It's you got to just have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, and one thing that I think a lot of people overlook is they try to bring their whole season as the story. And realistically, every day is a new story. You never know what's going to happen. So it's always, you got to be prepared. You know, you don't want to go in. One thing I preach to our guys a lot is make sure you're doing a pre-hunt. Make sure you're filming stuff before your hunt, because the one day that you don't do that, you're going to kill one.
And let me tell you, as a former editor, and I know as these guys as the editors now, if the guy's footage starts in the tree, we could just kill him. We hate that. I mean, it's like you're not helping us tell the story. You're not doing yourself any justice. And we got to create chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. So
what could you mean by that?
Yeah. So tell your story.
Quit fiddle farting around.
That's right.
Tell
you want to hear
story.
some more good quality,
More Terryisms.
Yeah, Terryisms. That's actually a Jim Howe. that one, which is
fiddle farting.
Yeah, no, the chicken salad. Chicken,
yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, so beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
I mean, essentially, you got to give people a reason to care. Like you may be interested in the hunt just because it was you, or your family might be interested because it's you, but
no one else is.
No one else. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I doubt even your wife is interested in watching that part.
Much guarantee that.
Yeah, you got to tell a story.
The thing nowadays is like there's so many guys out there with a camera killing big deer.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to watch your stuff, you got to have a compelling story behind it.
I get emails all the time. Hey, I want to be on the team. Okay, so the first thing I always reply is send us a highlight reel, 3 to 5 minutes, a link to a highlight reel of the previous kills, the footage of the previous kills. And almost always is, well, I don't film. It's like, well, okay, so you got to start filming. Like all of our guys film, they film with each other, their own friends and buddies and hunting partners. So we don't send camera guys out with everybody.
Right.
So start with filming your hunts, and as far as like creating a highlight reel, you can do a lot of stuff in iMovie pretty easily.
Yeah,
honestly,
for sure.
It's not that hard. So that's where I always tell them to start. You want to go on and be on television or DVDs DVDs are a thing of the past.
What is a DVD?
YouTube, whatever. You gotta put in the effort, man.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, these our guys work
hard.
their butts off.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time they put in the trees, and you get to see maybe one hunt from them, but they may have hunted 60 days throughout the year.
Well, how many days do you think we hunted last year? 40-ish?
Yeah.
And, you never see my stuff on 13 because we're not, there's so much where you're just not seeing anything.
Right.
Or you're seeing does or, and when we're going up against what Mark and Terry and Taylor are saying, I don't even make the cutting room floor edition. That's how crappy our hunts are.
Cutting room floor.
Yeah, there's
the
no
second level.
floor. We're in the basement.
But
we're subgrade.
And so that's where I think the intrinsic motivation comes in. You have to just want to do this.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of effort and footage that just goes completely unused that no one will see, that doesn't get used, but you still have to log it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the weird stuff catches fire.
Yeah, well, a lot of times we'll say that to the guys if they're sending in footage and not sending in everything. We're like, just send in everything and let us make the edit decision, because we're gonna see a little diamond in the rough there that you never thought anything of and create something out of it. Right. So you'd be surprised just by you don't want to film all day every day and just waste a lot of space, but. You'd be surprised what happens when you just have the camera rolling.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So Matt, you mentioned iMovie as a source for people to edit.
Just because it's pretty user friendly, and it's on people's iPhones. It's on a lot of probably all Apple products. I don't know as far as Android users what is available. PC guys, I don't know.
Like Adobe Suite, Adobe Cloud is relatively inexpensive nowadays. When it first came out, it was I think $100 a month.
Yeah.
And now you can narrow it down and just get Premiere for very little a month.
And Premiere's what we edit in here. I mean, that's what a lot of people edit in.
Yeah,
we used to use Final Cut Pro, and Apple kind of slowly and surely kind of discontinued doing anything with it. They got something Apple X or
it's Final Cut
X, but it's just not quite the Pro version that these guys need. So we switched to that Adobe Creative Suites. We used to use Adobe Premiere a long time ago when I first started here is what we were editing on, and we made the switch to Final Cut. So it's a great and pretty easy and user friendly, but for a free version, I know that iMovie's on every Apple product
for sure.
So
yeah,
and I'm sure there's other free versions for PCs and Android.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Windows is still doing Windows Movie Maker.
They are. Yeah, they
Okay.
still have Windows Movie Maker. Yeah.
That was free and that's serviceable.
Yeah.
You get the
it'll
point
work.
across.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Wow.
I think we covered. I don't think there's anything we haven't really covered, honestly.
No.
So from editing to using your phone and everything in between.
Hopefully Gary is satisfied.
Yeah,
Fully
for
answered.
sure.
We did
this
it for you,
question.
Gary.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I hope you actually listened to the podcast.
Wouldn't that stink?
Well, it could. We're really starting from scratch here, so
That's true, yeah.
Once we lost Kenny, we lost our audience. Tell a friend, please, if you're watching or listening. Tell a friend about the podcast.
Yes.
We could use as many listeners as possible.
Yeah, or else they're cutting Tim's salary.
Yeah. So please do listen.
And this
Bottom of my heart.
this will be going on DeerCast as well, correct?
Yeah, so all the podcasts end up over on DeerCast as well, and who knows? Once we really get rolling, there might be times where we do exclusive podcasts for DeerCast only. But in the meantime, Tim, take them through where all they can find it.
Yeah, so if you're watching the show right now, you can subscribe to the show, so it'll automatically download to your phone or mobile device or whatever by going through the iTunes store and clicking subscribe on Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. Google Play Store, it's actually called Google Play Music now, I believe, but you can subscribe there. Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much any place where you would get podcast, you can find the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. You can also go to our website, DruryOutdoors.com/podcast, and you can see all the ways to subscribe there. And you can also listen to the shows via the website if you want to. But the best way is to subscribe.
Absolutely. And then, of course, if you're watching this, you're seeing all the stuff and the content we're putting up on YouTube daily. So we're going to continue to hammer that home all fall and get some fresh new content, new deer kills that never have been seen before. We'll have the YouTube version of Natural Born. Yep. And so follow along there, subscribe there. We're actually, I think we just reached 75,000 subscribers on YouTube. And so we're going to give PSE bow away. We've already reached out and tried to contact the winner there. And we'll be giving one more away at 100,000 subscribers. So please do subscribe to the Drury Outdoors YouTube channel. And we're rolling along there. So we appreciate it. Of course, you can follow us on any social media at Drury Outdoors, and the big thing is DeerCast. Everything we do is the focus. Everything we're going to really start emphasizing DeerCast, and you're going to be able to get tons of content and everything we do all in one place. So that's the cool part, all in one place, and it's free for the year. So for the fall. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And I don't think I missed anything, did I?
I did. If you want to be on the show,
That's right.
you can be on the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. Like essentially be almost as famous as Trevor is right now. But if you go to DruryOutdoors.com/podcast, there'll be a tab on the right-hand side of the screen that says leave a message or something to that effect. That's a SpeakPipe plugin where you click it and it opens up kind of like a voice recorder. You can leave us a quick question. And thank you to everyone that has been leaving messages. We have been getting questions on there. Some of them are a little seasonal, like how to find deer beds during the summertime and what's too much in terms of pushing in. So if you've left us a message, thank you. Just know that we'll probably get to those when it comes time to address that, and it's a little more relevant for folks.
Absolutely. So I think that covers it for today. We went over our 30-minute mark that we were trying to hit.
If nothing else.
Yeah.
We probably went an hour. I don't know. But hopefully you enjoyed it. So, the fall's here. Everybody's starting to go out and hunt. So please be safe. Wear your safety harnesses. Identify your targets.
Yep.
And more importantly, have fun.
Yeah, let's shut this thing down.
All right. Till next time. Peace.
See ya.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by Lacrosse Footwear.